Okay, so now that we are able to destroy matches, we need to be able to move gems down when they get destroyed. So for example here, if we destroy that, we need that to fall down to the ground. Let's see if I can get a horizontal match here just so we can have a little chat. There we go. Okay, so we've got some holes in our system. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to loop through our array, our 2D array of all our gems. And everywhere we encounter an empty space, we're going to keep track of how many empty spaces there are and then move down our gems. So basic logic of what would happen here is this first row, we'd start at the bottom, first column, we'd start at the bottom and we go look at each gem in the row and there's no empty spaces, so that's perfectly fine. Then we go to a new row and here we'll see, oh, there's one empty space. So we're going to have a number that we'll keep track of. So we'll say, okay, we have one empty space. Then we'll hit another one and say, oh, we have 2 empty spaces. Now we have 3 empty spaces. And then once we get to this one, we see, oh, we have a gem here. Move that down the 3 spaces that we've stored. So 3 spaces. It'll move it down to there and then it'll go to here and say, okay, now we've got another one. Move that one down 3 spaces as well. Actually, let's just match up this here. So now we've got an extra gap just so we can see how to deal with this. So we get to here, we have 3 spaces. Once we get to this point, then we'll say, we're obviously not going to try and move this empty gap. We're just going to add one more to our empty spaces. So we'll say, hey, now we have 4 empty spaces. So now move this down 4 places. So basically what will happen is this will move down 3. So 1, 2, 3, it'll be here. This will move down 3, 1, 2, 3, it'll be here. And then we want our blue one to go here. And so if it moves down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, there it'll be. So that's how our system is going to work. And then once we get to the top of this line, we'll go down back to here. And obviously we're on a new column. So we'll say, oh, put our number back to be 0. So that's the basic idea of how it'll work. Pretty simple to do. And let's jump into our script and do that now. So let's open up the board script. And we're going to want this to happen not instantly. So when our players destroy their gems, we don't want the other gems to immediately move down to their position. We wanted to take a little bit of time, like wait for the gems to explode and then start moving down. So players have a feeling of the impact of their gems disappearing. So to do that, we're going to use another coroutine. So we're going to create a private IEnumerator that we're going to call decrease row co. So we're going to drop rows of gems down as they go. And we're going to call this after we've destroyed our matches. So after we've destroyed all the matches that we have in our scene, we're going to say, okay, we'll start the coroutine for destroying our gems. So start coroutine, decrease row co. So as we've done before, we're going to need to do a certain amount of weighting. So we're going to do here a yield, return, new, wait for seconds. And this time we're going to make it just wait a small amount. So we're just going to say 0.2 of a second. It's just enough for it to kind of hesitate for a moment, and it gives players a good feel of the impact of the explosions before the gems start falling down. Okay, so we've got our wait. Then we're going to need to keep track of that number that keeps track of how many empty spaces we have in our grid. Now I've already stopped that, so that's not going to be very helpful to look at. But so we're going to create an int called null count. Null counter, sorry, my brain stopped there for a moment. And we're going to set it to 0. And then we're going to loop through all the elements in our array. So let's get our for loop again here. I'm just going to copy the start of it because save us typing it out every time. And then we'll put 2 close brackets like so. And then within here, what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to check that the gem we're looking at is not null. Or sorry, if it is null, so we want to check, is there an empty space here? So if all gems at position x, y is equal to null, so if there's an empty space here, then add 1 to our counter. So our null counter plus 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 just means add 1 onto it. And then here we're going to say what happens if there is a gem. We'll just say else if null counter is greater than 0. So basically if we've encountered spaces below us, then we need to tell our gem to move to that position. So we'll say all gems at x, y dot position index dot y minus equals null count. So we're taking away the counter from the y position. Then we're going to assign in our all gems array x, and then at y minus the null counter. So at the position where the gem is going to move to, we're going to assign that to be equal to the current x and y gem, because we're moving that gem to a new position. And then finally we're going to say the current position we're looking at, set that to be equal to null, because we just moved objects out of this space. And then once we get to the end of this, so once we've dealt with a for loop dealing with one column, which is our y values, we're moving then onto the next y column. So y0 will be obviously the first column, and then we'll move to y1 will be the next one. So we want to make sure, sorry, not y, x is 0 for the first column on the left, and then x will be 1. I was saying the wrong letter, I was confusing myself. And then what we'll do is, so before the end of the x loop, so before this loops around to x becoming 1, we're going to say that the null counter should be reset to be 0. So let's save this and let's see what happens. Let it compile. And once that finishes compiling, we should be able to play and see. If we remove this one here, there we go, we get our tower falling down. So if I match these, then our little row falls down. So perfect. We're now able to have our columns and our rows, fall down when we create a match. So that's perfect. We now have much more functionality in our game, and the next thing we need to do is to make it refill all these rows.